But it was effective and it did its job. It made its intended audience laugh and show their teeth. It was that moment when the person asking to sit in the most respected seat in our country.
For decades, Meryl Streep has been regarded as the greatest actress of her generation. A woman whose face could transform into any character, whose voice could bear the weight of centuries, and whose performances left reviewers stunned and crowds in tears. On TV, she appeared untouchable, the perfect embodiment of intellect. Behind the glittering statues, magazine covers, and thundering acclaim, however, is a far less glamorous reality. The truth about a lady who traded love for art, carried loss like a secret wound, and today, at 76, lives in a way that many would describe as quietly sad. Not because she failed, but because her victories commanded a price that could never be paid. Meryl Streep is more than just an actor. She is a mirror, a vessel, a soul that has repeatedly emptied itself for the purpose of storytelling. But what happens once the stories are finished? What happens when the applause stops and just stillness remains? Meryl Streep was born Mary Louise Streep on June 22, 1949, in Summit, New Jersey. She was a terribly shy girl in a strict Catholic environment. Her father, Harry William Streep Jr., was a diligent and pragmatic pharmaceutical businessman. Her mother, Mary Wilkinson, a commercial artist, was kind, protective, and ambitious for her daughter. Mary Louise was never a typical youngster. She was not the most attractive or confident girl at school. She did, however, have a talent for impersonating other people's voices and faces. At home, she would perform small plays for her family, making them laugh and astound them with her ability to transform into someone else. It was a skill that had the potential to change the world. She worked hard, received scholarships, and eventually landed at Yale Drama School, where her talent was turned into steel. She trained at Yale with relentless dedication, learning to turn every gesture, pause, and whisper into art. Even so, something in her eyes suggested agony, longing, and a soul bearing more than it should. Then came John Cazale. He was already a legend in the making, having starred in The Godfather and Dog Day Afternoon. He was older, quieter, and more intense in ways that reflected her own. They fell in love swiftly and deeply. For Meryl, John was more than simply a partner. He was a home, a safe haven in the midst of a blossoming profession. But fate is harsh. In 1978, John Cazale was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Meryl, only 28 at the time, supported him through every agonizing moment. She refused to leave, sleeping beside his hospital bed and whispering to him until the pain became terrible. He died that year, taking with him a piece of Meryl's spirit. She rarely discusses it, but many who know her say John's death altered her permanently. It gave her performances depth and agonizing genuineness. When she cried on screen, it wasn't a performance, it was grief returning. In Kramer Versus, Kramer, she cried as a mother ripped apart by divorce and custody fights. She was still mourning John. That picture earned her the first of 3 Oscars. But as the golden statue was placed in her hands, her heart remained heavy with grief. For Meryl, art and pain were interwoven. Her career skyrocketed following that. Sophie's Choice, Silkwood, Out of Africa, each performance was more horrific than the last. She possessed an almost mystical ability to disappear into roles. She became a Polish immigrant, whistleblower, Holocaust survivor, and fashion editor, both physically and spiritually. Critics bowed, audiences gasped, Hollywood hailed her as its queen. But genius is never free. Perfectionism, which made her great, also isolated her. Directors commented that she was too intense. Co-stars said that working with her can be frightening, even smothering. She was concerned with nuances like accents, gestures, and silences. She could not stop until it was perfect. At home, the tension followed her. In 1978, the year she lost John Cazale, she married sculptor Don Gummer. They had 4 children together and raised them primarily in tranquil Connecticut, away from Hollywood's glitz. To the outside world, it appeared to be a storybook life: the loyal husband, the clever wife, and the joyful children. However, those close to Meryl understood the truth was more convoluted. Her profession frequently took her away for months at a time. She revealed in interviews that she sometimes felt like a tourist in her own home, slipping in between shoots, skipping birthdays, and missing everyday life. "You can't be everywhere," she once admitted, "and the guilt never leaves you." Her marriage persisted for decades, thanks to mutual respect and a certain distance that allowed her to continue working. Meryl and Don did, however, separate discreetly in 2023. There was no controversy and no negative headlines, just a modest acknowledgement that after more than 4 decades, they had drifted apart. It served as yet another reminder to Meryl that even the strongest structures can deteriorate over time and with sacrifice. Meanwhile, Hollywood itself started to turn against her. As she approached 40, roles became rare. Casting directors warned her she was too old to play a romantic interest. Studios wanted new faces, not middle-aged ladies. For the first time, Meryl felt discarded and irrelevant. However, she refused to disappear. In 2006, she responded with "The Devil Wears Prada." Meryl scared and captivated viewers as Miranda Priestley, the frigid fashion editor she modeled after Anna Wintour. She demonstrated not only her continued relevance, but also her ability to reinvent herself. 2 years later, she enchanted the world once more with Mamma Mia, revealing a lighter, more free-spirited side of herself. It was a win, but it didn't take away the sting of ageism, the realization that Hollywood was ready to write her off. By her 70s, Meryl had 21 Academy Award nominations, a number that no one else had matched. She was a legend, an institution, and an unrivaled symbol. Off-screen, however, her life became quieter and more lonely. Her children had grown up and established their own families. Her marriage had ended in separation. Friends and colleagues she had formerly relied on had passed away. What about Meryl herself? She revealed in rare interviews that she felt the seclusion intensely. Acting had been her life and obsession, but as the roles slowed and the curtain fell, she was left wondering, who am I without the work? Meryl Streep's tale is one of brilliance cloaked in shadow. Every prize on her shelf represents an absence, a missed moment, a lost relationship, or a memory that never existed. She has frequently stated that acting saved her by giving her a voice when she was too bashful to speak on her own. But it also absorbed her, taking over every aspect of her life until there was little left for anything else. Even in her late 70s, the world referred to her as a goddess of cinema. However, at home, her life had become curiously small. Her current permanent residence is a secluded mansion in Connecticut. Not the vast, magnificent castle you'd expect from a woman worth nearly $150 million, but a cozy, almost humble home filled with books, art, and solitude. Meryl has always avoided Hollywood excess. She is not interested in boats, diamond-studded gowns, or extravagant parties. She prefers her garden, cooking, and handwritten notes kept in notebooks. But the stillness that once felt like a haven has at times grown oppressive. Her hubby is no longer by her side. Her children, while affectionate, have their own families and occupations. She hardly attends Hollywood events anymore. Instead, she spends most of her time reading biographies, writing letters, and wandering the forest walks behind her house. To an outsider, it appears peaceful. To some, it appears lonely. The melancholy is not due to poverty or scandal. It is free of noise. For a lady who used to live in perpetual transformation, embodying hundreds of lives, the quiet feels like an exile. When she does appear on screen these days, it's with a melancholy tone. Her portrayal of Margaret Thatcher in The Iron Lady was hailed as one of her best, but there was a deeper meaning behind it. Playing a woman dealing with aging, memory loss, and the waning of authority felt more like prophecy. Meryl has always been extremely mindful of time. In interviews, she has spoken with sadness about growing older in Hollywood and how women are abandoned as their youth goes. "You have to find yourself again," she once told me, "when everyone else is ready to move on without you." That spectacular reinvention was not without cost. She is the most decorated actress living, as well as one of the most quietly burdened. Genius isolated her. Millions adored her, but few knew her well. Even her marriage, long regarded as a Hollywood rarity because to its longevity, was not without flaws. In later years, she and Don Gummer made few public appearances together. And when they announced their split after 4 decades, it reinforced what many had long suspected. The ideal family image was just that. For Meryl, family was both an anchor and an absence. She has repeatedly stated that her children are her greatest accomplishment, more valuable than any Oscar. Despite this, her professional obligations frequently kept her away. "You can't practice motherhood," she once said. "You can only do it. And sometimes, I wasn't there to do it." The remorse never left her. Even as her children reassured her, as they developed their own lives, she was aware that her passion to art had taken something away from them. Something ordinary, yet irreplaceable. And now, in her 70s, her remorse has turned to introspection. She wanders through her house, the walls adorned with photographs, posters from her films, and framed reviews, feeling both proud and mournful. Each image is a remembrance of a part she embraced so completely that she almost lost herself in it. But after the lights went out, the crew went home, and the cameras stopped, she remained alone. The truth is that Meryl Streep gave her all to the world, piece by piece, role by role. What remains today is quieter, smaller, and more fragile. Her health has also slowed her down. While she has dodged many of the well-publicized ailments that have plagued her peers, years of constant filming, travel, and mental exhaustion have taken their toll. She tired more quickly. She avoids huge groups. Even while she remains graceful in public, people who see her privately report that she is more withdrawn than ever. At 76, she has little to prove. She has received the most Academy Award nominations of any actor in history. She has portrayed monarchs, mothers, witches, warriors, saints, and sinners. Her voice has become the voice of cinema. However, Meryl believes that legacy alone is insufficient. She has openly discussed the emptiness that follows acclaim. "You do the work," she once stated. "You devote everything to it, and then it is finished, and you're left in silence." She is currently living in silence. Some could call it peace, some would call it sadness. Meryl Streep sees it both ways. She continues to read every script that is presented to her and carefully evaluates each position. However, she no longer feels the same sense of urgency as before. The fire that propelled her through decades of brilliance has cooled to embers. She has stated that she would rather spend time with her grandchildren rather than chase another monument. And yet, when she does return to the screen, when her face dominates the frame and her voice carries a phrase that no one else could say with such weight, the enchantment returns. For a little period, loneliness fades. For a time, she is not 76, separated, or quiet. She has become immortal again. Perhaps her greatest tragedy, as well as her greatest gift, is that her truest life has always resided in fiction. That the most joyful moments she has ever given us were during performances. And that when the curtain closes, She must return to the peaceful house, garden, diaries, and shadows of recollection. Meryl Streep is around 76. She is still untouchable in the eyes of the world, the acting high priestess. But to herself, she is simply a lady who dedicated her entire life to art and now lives with the stillness she has left behind. Her life isn't tragic. However, it is sad, in the same way that all lives built on sacrifice are. The applause fades, the lights go off, and the woman behind the legend sits silently, surrounded by memories, pondering what it all means. And yet, if her narrative has affected you, if her performances have ever held you through pain or raised you in stillness, she has not lived in vain. She once stated that her objective was not to be perfect, but to be authentic. And perhaps that is the ultimate truth about Meryl Streep, that in her anguish, seclusion, and meditation, she gave us something timeless. If you've ever liked Meryl Streep's work, whether it's made you cry, laugh, or believe in the power of cinema, please leave a like. It's a modest gesture, but for a woman who has given us everything, it's the least we can do.